So what type of things get monitored? I was talking about nitrogen, which we'll talk about again in a second, but all different types of pollution get monitored. For example, sediment. Think about a construction site. A construction site usually is taking up all the grass, all the trees, all the everything, and releases a lot of sediment into a water body. So you get things like this. And again, that can have a detrimental effect to the ecosystem. Organisms literally cannot see, or they may suffocate because they're breathing in a lot of this sediment. So what gets mandated, especially at construction sites? So a construction site will have to get a water body permit. They will have to sign up in the NPDES system. So some of the regulations that the NPDES puts on them is you have to put up these barriers. This is to catch sediment. So if it starts raining, the sediment is caught. Another prevention to make sure sediment's not going in is they have to put covers over grates to make sure sediment is not going in. You see there's still an opening though, because you still want water to get in there. But hopefully the sediment will get caught beforehand. With that said, if you ever see any of these down, so they got toppled over or something, contact the state immediately. That is a breach of their permit, and again, that's contributing to water pollution in your area. So you might feel bad, like, oh, I don't want to rat them out. You know, what is it, snitches get stitches? But pretty sure this construction company is not going to come after you, and it's really just to protect the environment. Another thing that gets monitored, like I used in my example, is nitrogen. So other nutrients, such as phosphorus and potassium, can cause algal blooms. And we learned about the harm of algal blooms earlier, how they can cause dead zones. These nutrients are coming from farms, so represented here with our fruits and vegetables, but also us as humans. Our waste has tons of nutrients in it. Our soaps or our dish detergents, they have tons of nutrients in it. When we use these things, they go down the sink, they go down the toilet, and they go to a wastewater treatment system. Wastewater treatment systems release water back into the environment. They have an NPDES too. So it's monitoring, in their case, nutrients and making sure not too many nutrients are entering our ecosystems. Another thing that gets monitored is temperature. You know, we mentioned before that temperature is not something you hold, but it's still something that causes pollution in our ecosystems, particularly warm temperatures. Now, when it comes to impervious surface, that would be a non-point source pollution. That warm temperature is from parking lots, from tops of buildings, and we don't know which one. Yes, there's warm water, but we don't know where that warm water is coming from. In this case, the NPDES is monitoring this type of warm water. You have probably seen these before. You may not have known this is either at a nuclear power plant or more than likely at a coal-powered plant. These are cooling towers. So you see them and you might think, oh, this is a really bad gas. All of that is actually good old H2O. This is just water vapor. This is all steam that's rising up. Water is used to cool down the turbines that are used in power generation. Typically, coal-powered plants are found on a water body, which is what you see down here. And this has cold H2O. And so what the company does is they will bring in this water into the power generation plant. They'll bring it in to the power generation plant, use it to cool it off. But because they're using it to cool it off, the water is actually warming up. The water is getting pretty hot. Now, originally, these power plants would just put that water back into the river. But you're talking like 30, 40 degrees warmer, and that's way too warm for the environment. So, power plants have to get an NPDES for temperature. And it says that your temperature has to be X degrees. And if it's warmer than that, you've got to do something. One of the things they do is using power plants, cooling towers in their power plants. So what happens inside one of these is there are tons of hoses all in the inside. So these are inside. And these hoses are spraying that really hot water into the middle. So this is a huge just cylinder. It's empty on the inside. And so the water just gets sprayed. And as it gets sprayed, the air is helping to cool down that water. And as it's cooling down the water, steam is being released into the atmosphere. And that's fine. That'll turn into rain somewhere else. But because it's releasing a lot of heat this way, you are going to have water that falls back down, and it's going to be a lot cooler than it was when it first went in. That water gets collected and then released back into the environment. So really not too complicated of a process, but maybe something you never thought about, that water temperature can be a pollutant, and companies actually do a lot of things in order to cool down that water. Go ahead and pause this video. I want to show you the inside of one of these cooling towers. It also helped to visualize what I mean by spraying water into the middle. So it's a quick video. It's just some guys who maybe illegally broke in. Maybe they work there. I can't remember which video I'm sending you. But you can get an idea of what the inside of these towers look like and how they use it for cooling that water. Once you've watched it, go ahead and come back here to finish this lecture. And then finally, the last thing that gets monitored, and probably the most obvious one that gets monitored, are chemicals. You know, if I'm creating lead and I've got lead as a byproduct and I want to release lead into the water, well, I have to do the same thing. I have to get a permit through the NPDES system. I have to, or in that permit, it checks the TMDL, so how much am I allowed to produce? And then once that's approved, then I can start polluting the water. But there's tons of chemicals. Some of the big ones, so mercury, cadmium's a heavy metal, copper, lead, even gold. All those chemicals are regulated. And you might think, well, it's unacceptable we let any of this into the environment. And I don't disagree with you. But again, capitalist country, we don't want to be regulating businesses. Hopefully, and at some point this will change, and it'll be the businesses that are responsible for cleaning up their waste. But as for right now, we are still allowed to waste, but it is much more heavily regulated because we are trying to turn that number. 40% you can't even swim in. We are trying to turn that number around. So again, the biggest water law that is probably the most important and the strongest is the Clean Water Act. It works by having states identify water quality standards. What should this river look like? If the river doesn't look like that, it's labeled as impaired and would get assigned a total maximum daily load, or a TMDL. This essentially says, yes, you can pollute it, but only this amount. That TMDL helps in the permitting system. If I have a company who wants to release pollutants, this permitting system kind of keeps track of how much pollutants are entering that water body. Because of these laws, we have really greatly reduced the amount of water pollution that are in our system from temperature, from chemicals, from nutrients, from all sorts of things.